Apex Legends has a ton of aspects that you need to learn in order to become a better player, and I mean, we have covered a bunch of them on this channel before, but there is one thing that stands above all others when it comes to getting better at Apex. So hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8 Second Gaming, and in today's video I'm going to be breaking down exactly how you can start to win all of your fights. Apex fights tend to fall into the same patterns and players tend to react the same way to things. When you are able to identify those things, you will start to understand how to win more of those fights. And like I just said, there are tons of aspects in Apex, so if you're looking to learn them all, there's no better place than the GameLeap website. Over there, we have top level coaches creating highly in-depth educational guides so that no matter what aspects of Apex you're struggling with, you can learn how to overcome them and start seeing massive amounts of improvement. So click the link in the description, get yourself a membership today, or you don't get sprinkles on your ice cream tonight. But now let's dive back into learning about fights, and the first thing you always need to do when getting into a fight is understand what's going on. Having a keen sense of awareness and understanding all of the factors when going into a fight is a huge factor when learning how to get better. Everyone wants to pull off the flashy plays like Asu, but that will come over time. You have to build a foundation up first before you can do that. And even if you have amazing aim and can laser a target easily, if you get blindsided by a flanking enemy or just have no idea how to position yourself properly, that won't help you, as you'll die very quickly in fights and won't have time to show your Discord kitten how sick your recoil control is. So when you first get into a fight, you need to start identifying targets and positions. A lot of people get caught off guard when playing. You trail off to loot a building, or maybe you just need to go craft a battery, and then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose and your teammates have somehow roped themselves into a fight. Most of the time your reaction is to blindly throw yourself into the fight and try to do as much as you can to help your teammates win that fight. But in doing that, you aren't able to pick up the information that you need in order to succeed. You aren't aware of the legends that you're fighting, where they are, where your teammates are, has anyone used any of their abilities, and so on. If you stop for just a second or two longer, you'd be able to see those few things and begin to work them into your plan of attack. If you just take that extra little amount of time, you can notice a Wraith phasing, meaning she has no escape tool and is a good target to focus. Or maybe you see a Lifeline off on her own. Lifeline is very easily singled out as she has no movement ability. Great option for pressuring. Taking that small amount of time to check finer details in a fight can really change how you view them and really help you and your team on winning them. But now that you're taking your time before jumping into a fight, how do you properly engage one? Look, you can make all the best choices leading up to that fight, but as soon as it actually breaks out, things can end up going south very quickly if you don't continue to make the right choices. And a lot of it comes down to peeking the right angles. That means understanding where the enemy team is, what spots they'd be weak on, and abusing that. This is one of the hardest skills to learn in Apex because you need to have proper timing on the peaks and make sure that you're peeking the right spot as well. If you happen to peek at the wrong time, you could be staring at all 3 of your enemies that are trained on you and ready to just light you up, and you're dead before you can even do anything. Or if you don't peek the right spot, you could be looking at just a blank wall and not really be helping your team because there's no one to shoot. It also takes a massive amount of mechanical skill to pull off these peeks because you need to be able to hit your shots as well. So even if you peek at the right time and you're looking at the right spot, you miss all your shots, you're not helping as well either, so there's a lot of factors that go into this. And I know people like examples a lot more when learning, so let's go with that. Let's say your teammates are fighting. You have 2 options. Number 1 is to run directly to your team and join up, using shared sightlines to fight. Or option number 2 is to use different sightlines, play split from your team, and look for off angles and force the other team into uncomfortable spots because they have less space to play. Both options are extremely viable and have their place and time to be used. The best time to use option number 1 is if your team is already winning the fight and they just need a little bit more muscle to finish off the enemy team. You can then all push up together in the form of a death ball and overwhelm the opposing squad with your advantages. However, there is a downside to this as well. Because you're all in the same spot, you can open up to certain attacks that can end fights instantly, such as a well-placed frag grenade. If the enemy team happens to be good at skynading, they can take all three of you out without even batting an eye and the fight is over. So do be aware of that and make sure to be keeping an eye out for those types of attacks. But option number 2 has its time and place as well. If your team isn't clearly winning the fight and it seems to be at a stalemate, you need something to push it to one side or the other. A crack, a knock, somebody wasting utility like a Gibraltar bubble, just any sort of advantage to be able to push off of. If someone on your team is able to take an off angle on the enemy team and catch them by surprise, that can create the opening that your team needs. If you're not all peeking the same angles, then a lot more options are opened up. However, this one also has downsides as someone from your team is split off from the main group, and that means either they can get jumped in a 3v1 or the remaining 2 can get dove on instead, making that a 3v2. If the enemy team is able to capitalize off of you being split, it can be a bad situation, so you need to be constantly applying some form of pressure to make sure that they can't do that for free. But now the next thing we need to talk about is learning how to play cover. I see a lot of players, especially in low elo, not fully utilize cover and they get punished very hard for that. So when learning to play cover, you have to understand the right times to dip behind and play safe. The main one is if your gun isn't ready. No weapon in Apex has 100% uptime on damage. There are always portions of time where you have to swap to another one or reload or just stuff like that where you aren't able to shoot. So if you aren't able to shoot, why are you staring someone down? I get it, intimidation factor is a thing, but I don't think the guy with the Mastiff in your face is very intimidated by you staring at him. If you instead just popped back behind a wall or a supply bin or a rock or something and waited until you could shoot back, you'd have a better chance at winning. Now, a lot of people might be saying how obvious this tip is, but I'm willing to bet that if I looked back through your games, you've done this to some extent and it's lost you a fight. It's something even the best players in Apex are guilty of. It happens a lot more than you'd think. And on top of that, even if your gun is ready, sometimes you have to wait for the right opportunity to pop out of cover. People get very trigger happy when they start shooting at something and they don't really like to stop. So most of the time, people will empty their clip into a wall and leave themselves vulnerable. If you stay behind cover when they do this, you can then pop out and take advantage of them when they're weak. I just now realized how wrong that sounds, but I'm leaving it in. And these are skills that take a lot of time to develop and need to be trained. A great way to learn to use these skills is to watch how other high skill players peek out from cover. Some options to look for are you can check out some of the VOD reviews that I've done here on the GameLeap channel, you could watch your favorite pro player and see how they do it, or check out one of my own personal streams over on Twitch TV/8secondgaming. I would love to see some new faces there. And fighting in Apex is one of those things that seems very straightforward, but when you really start to break it down, it's actually fairly complex and there's a lot that goes into it. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you did, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our videos coming out. Thank you all for watching. Once again, I'm 8secondgaming and I will see you in the next one.